Okay, hi everyone out there. This is our second podcast for the Wellsite Automation Initiative. And joining me today, I have Nate Bookwalter, who's the SCADA Systems Admin at Anadarko. Nate, how are you?
I'm good. We're doing good here.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for joining us today. Nate, I'll just start off here again, I suppose for people to know, how long have you been working in the automation space? And I guess, what is it or how did you get involved initially?
I initially got involved after enlisting in the military. My first job there was a couple systems where we tracked soldiers and equipment, actually, and that was 2002 to about 2008. So that was just kind of happenstance, is actually what it was, and enjoyed that. And then I transitioned from the military to the civilian sector, and 2008 to present has been oil and gas automation the entire time, from the field level instrumentation all the way up to the enterprise SCADA systems.
Excellent. And have you found many differences between military and I suppose more civil and oil and gas applications?
The major difference is the regulation, the requirements, and the red tape. The military was huge documentation, 10-year projects, huge, incredible budgets, and then you moved over to the civilian sector, and it was kind of like, here's an idea, here's your budget restraint, make it happen. And, those are two entirely different ways of looking at how to build something.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I guess, no one likes to get bogged down in red tape, but I suppose it's kind of a double-edged sword that way. But I guess, Nate, I know when we spoke before, you mentioned, reducing redundant costs as being a really important part of what you do. But I suppose for anyone kind of looking at this, what do you mean by that in terms of redundant cost?
So, Anadarko, at one time, when I first came on to Anadarko, I started in Gillette, Wyoming. There were 6 Anadarko employees. That's what we had in that region of the U.S. for our onshore operations, 6 people. And then we merged with another company that had thousands, and they had operations all over the place. Well, we quickly found that when there was 6 of us, we all communicated. We knew what each other was doing. We knew what we were requesting. We knew what we were building. But when you have thousands across dozens of locations, they become silos in a way. And one asset in Vernal, Utah would build functionality or an automation structure or process one way, and then one in South Texas would build it another way, but they're both achieving the same goal. And it's not to say that one is wrong over the other. It's just when you look at both of them, you go, why didn't we think of doing it that way? So you consolidate so that you don't maintain 2 applications or processes when you really, one will suffice and do everything you need. So we find a lot of that in development where this asset has taken an idea, created a prototype or proof of concept, and then molded it into their business process, and then 7 other assets have done the exact same thing on their own dime, on their own time, but we're all achieving the same goal. So why continue with that type of madness when we have the availability to communicate and collaborate all the time?
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I guess as you mentioned, when it's a 6-person organization, it might be that bit easier to kind of, I suppose, see those issues as they emerge. But is that a question of standardizing then across a larger company, or?
It is. It's standardizing, but we didn't know why. You tell everyone, well, you really need to do it this way, and you've already agreed that that's the best way to do it, but you can't necessarily tell them why. But when you grow to such a size, and then you finally hit that break of a point where you want to turn automation data into information, now you've got enterprise systems that are touching all of these little silos, and it's a pain to touch them if they're all doing it a different way or if they're all accomplishing the same goal in a different way. So now you've got some proof of why you need to standardize, and that's what it came down to is, guys, we've got to standardize what we call a tank level as far as a database tag. What do we call a tank as far as a database tag? How do we identify these things? And it was standardization is one of those things everyone, I think, preaches. Very few do it great, but I guess the ones that succeed do it enough, and that's what we're trying to do.
That's it. I mean, it's almost reminiscent of the early days of Europe, the French coming up with the metric system, making sure everyone follows the same thing. But, I guess in the US and Ireland, it's not the same as that. But
it's getting there. I think everybody's toolbox has got metric wrenches in it.
Thank God, yeah. And then looking as well, I mean, I was looking on RigZone there last week, and there was an article on it looking at this huge shift into automation. And, according to this article anyway, apparently, the top 50% of E&Ps in the US now, they're going to double down their investment in automation over the next few years. But, I mean, why is it such a priority right now?
Cost. Big time. I mean, and this, even at today's market, it's cost driven, huge. When I can have a computer perform a task that you used to do 100 times repetitively in the exact same fashion, I can move you to a more important role. But even when oil was $100 a barrel, even when gas was selling for $8 an M, even then it's about streamline. Your shareholder at $100 a barrel is wanting to show better returns, just like he is at $30 oil. So we perform so many tasks repetitively that automation is your answer out of doing those, so that you can do the next thing. And without it, I mean, who wants to drive to every single well every single day just to see that it's okay?
Yeah, well, that's a fair point. I know I don't.
No, and I did it for 4 years, and it was just like, this is crazy. There's got to be a better way. And automation, as it evolves, as you accept it, as you learn to trust it, will evolve that will create a place where you don't have to go to there every day just to make sure it's running.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's like, I suppose, a big step that industry's taking. But I mean, in terms of that, I mean, you've been in this area for quite a while now. How long is it?
So oil and gas, 8 years, and then the defense industry was 6.
Perfect. So I mean, nearly up there in 15 years. So, I mean, in that time, I mean, what would you say is the most exciting project you've worked on in terms of automation?
Man, that's got to be a tie between two of them. The current one that we're doing right now is turning data into information. I say that a lot. Some people, that's a buzzword, but that's what it is. You're taking 1 billion data points, and in our environment right now, I think we're like 5 billion data points. And who can sift through that? Nobody can. But a computer can, as long as you can define the rule of what it's looking for. And that's what we're going through now with moving out of beta into first release of basically an application that will troll the entire enterprise looking for certain conditions and then comparing them against other conditions that it found to give you insight and to tell you, hey, look at me for this reason. And you just took what equivalent in one spot, one of our assets, that's 4 or 5 people for 2 hours a day. And you just did it in 15 minutes for their asset and 54 others. So that's the one that, when that comes to fruition and bought into and widely used, I don't think we'll ever go back. That'll be one of those evolution points where you just simply don't fall back to the previous way of doing things. And that's definitely the biggest one. The other one was just simply being able to, this was in the military, was being able to see at your fingertips where every soldier, where every tank, where every helicopter, where every ambulance was standing, where they were at, where they were moving, what was shifting them, where were they coming from, and what was their skill sets. At a drop of a dime, you can just click on that person. That's what I need. Send them over here, and they get the orders and they move on. That used to be, back in the old days, that was a guy on a horse running out to the battlefield.
Oh my God, what was that like? I mean, you get so many people playing kind of, computer games and having that oversight, but no, you very rarely imagine someone on a real life battlefield actually being able to have that kind of bird's eye view. I mean, what was that like to be involved in?
Chaotic. I mean, you can imagine you've got thousands of leaders, and you've got millions of soldiers, and you've got tens of millions of pieces of equipment, and you've got everybody's opinion of how it should work, how it should feel, how it should look, and you find the ones who truly stay engaged and invested, and you build for what they bring up, what you see, and for those stop orders that came in and went, man, we should have thought about that. Now we got to rebuild it. But it was quite chaotic, and it's one of those, like I said, it was a 10-year original project, was 10 years, and it's been rescoped again for another 20, and that's when I was leaving. So, but when I left, yeah, you could pull up the Iraq theater, you could pull up Afghanistan, you could pull up Egypt, you could pull up anything you wanted, and not only see the U.S., but all of the allies, everybody that was helping us, everybody that was in it with us, and even civilians that were, in the network as well. So it was a massive undertaking that is still ongoing, still evolving, but you can't imagine how many things you did wrong until you have a full picture to see what it is you did wrong.
That's a fun way of looking at it, I guess. I mean, it's that kind of the old story of the guy. The guy doesn't know that he's incompetent unless he's a perfectly happy person until someone tells him.
Right. I think we've all looked at a graph of data at one time and went, "Wow, how did I let that go for so long?" Well, until you get the right picture, you just don't know.
I guess until you're focused on the right thing, once you can't stop seeing it as well.
Yeah, and at that point you see that, and then you're like, well, if I can do that, can I do this? And that's how automation works. That's the reason automation will never end. You get into it, and the first time you show somebody a result that helps them, they're going to come to you with 2 more. And then you show them, and they're going to come to you with 4 more.
That's it, absolutely. Now, that's all really incredibly interesting stuff, Nate, actually, everything there. But I suppose bringing it back down to earth, now, you're going to be sitting on our tank monitoring panel on day 2 of the conference, and that's going to be alongside Kevin McDaniel over at Marathon and Rick Strong from Vincent. But I guess could you give us a taste of the areas that you're going to be touching on there?
So leak detection, that's one. If you've got a tank full of oil, you've probably got a reporter waiting for it to leak and to put it on CNN. So tank leak detection is one, but the other is hauling. When to haul the tank, when to order or dispatch the truck to haul the tank. A lot of companies still, they don't have pipelines. They're not running, they're not filling a tank, pumping it through a LAC, shoving it into a pipeline. They're calling a truck and telling them to come out and pick up, 130 barrels and head for the sales point. And when you have 7,000 locations in one region, that's a lot of people to manage. So that's a big initiative on us, is trying to figure out what right looks like and doing that efficiently. And then, of course, the leak detection it's a big deal for, tanks that are gaining some age, others that have some very corrosive properties in the commodity or in the product that's in them. So those are the 2 things that I was planning and would like to hit on, is how is everybody doing it? This is how we're doing it. This is how we think the next evolution is going to look, and try to engage in some conversation around that.
Absolutely, and as you know, as I mentioned when I spoke with you last, it is clearly a huge issue right now, and I suppose making that jump in those areas that don't have such a I suppose high tech setup. But on that note, actually, I know, for kind of smaller operators, setting up an automation program can be kind of daunting. But where should they start? What are the key considerations there? If you've already made the business case that we need automation, you're tired of filling out Barton charts or driving to every location every day or not knowing when this thing is full or this is overpressured, you've made that decision, you're going down this path. We need to automate what's Rev 1. Regardless of the size of the company, you know what your business is, and you probably have a rough idea of what this is going to blow up into. Can you staff it? Because if you can't staff for what you think out the gate you're going to be doing, you're going to lose the buy-in of everybody you're there to try to support and help, because they're going to see you as a bottleneck or a slowdown or somebody who just always says, no, can't do that.
So staffing is a big thing. You simply can't run a BPR shell with one automation tech. I think we all remember the days when IT first came into our companies as a requirement. They're like, oh yeah, one guy, he can do Exchange, he can do networking, he can do wireless, he can do the phones, and it quickly became overwhelming, and now most companies have a true, structured, well-staffed IT department. So that's one thing. The other one is the buy-in. You can create the best thing in the world, but people know what they know, and they like what they've been doing. So you bring in automation, and you've got all this great data. And let's say you're just doing something simple, telling them, hey, all of your wells are running, all of their pressures are in line. Good. They still won't look at it because that's not what they've been doing for 50 years, 20 years, or even the guy who started last year. It's not what he's been doing. It's not what he was trained. Management and leadership have to say, look, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And they can't just dictate it. They have to show it, prove it. And that's where your buy-in from the top comes to help push the initiative. And that will, if it's pushed right, done well, that will get you buy-in from the bottom up, and you will start seeing these people come to you and say, I would like to see if my flow rate ever dips below this and my differential goes above this. Can you show me that? Now you've got buy-in from that individual as a user of the data. And from there, I think your automation grows.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's so much of what we've spoken about, I suppose, that transition and getting there and changing that mindset. But I mean, so much of this is going to be on this agenda and what we're talking about here. For anyone out there listening to this is going to be coming to Houston at the Doubletree by Hilton on the 27th and 28th of January. There's a great program, and you can find it online. It's at www.wellsite, all one word, automation.com. But for the time being, Nate, thank you very much for joining me here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Not at all. Listen, we'll see you on the 27th and 28th of January. Bye now.